This is Nathan with Lesson 6 Bible Study. As always, refer to your notes to do the review. It's always good for them to do the review so they can retain more of the information from the previous lessons. And always touch on the dispensations, the faith, obedience, and the shedding of blood. And again, refer to your notes for that. We're going to get started. Lesson 6, Genesis chapter 37 verse 1, and Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, just keep that in mind, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. He made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. So this is just like the punk younger brother, basically, and they just thought he was a brat. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and they made obeisance to my sheaves, or they bowed down to mine. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream. Like, he didn't get the picture. They already hated him. He shares his dream. You guys are going to bow down to me. And so he says, Hey, I have another dream. And he told it his brethren and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. So I don't know the tonality in which his father said it. It says he rebuked him, but it says he also observed the saying. Now keep in mind, he was 17 years old, and there was 11 stars plus 1 moon plus 1 sun, representing obviously his parents and his brethren, but that's 13 in total. 11 stars, 1 moon, 1 sun, 13 in total. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here I am. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. So he did this, verse 14, and he said to him, Go, I pray thee, verse 14, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, Oh, they are departed hence. For I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. So this guy, Joseph, the youngest brother, they hate him. He's got favor, obviously, with the father. He's got a coat of many colors. Now keep in mind, this guy's going to be changing clothes a lot of times throughout this Bible study, throughout this portion of Scripture. But he gave him a coat of many colors. And then he had these dreams, and so they're hating him for everything. He had another dream, and you guys are going to bow down to me. And so now he's trying to find his brethren, and they probably just, were like, man, let's go somewhere else. So, he's going to come check on us, and we just don't want to be bothered by him. But he happens to meet a man there who says, Oh, yeah, I just so happened to be here when they left, and I just so happened to hear where they went. So he goes to find them in Dothan. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. Now they know it was him. They probably saw that big, bright coat of many colors. In this time period, it was very expensive and time consuming to get, a coat of many colors. It wasn't like now where you can whip together a bunch of, colorful clothes off a manufacturing belt. And so it was very recognizable. It was a rare coat. And they said one to another, "Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, Some evil beast has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams." And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, "Let us not kill him." And Reuben said unto them, "Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again." So it looks like he's being kind, but Reuben, the backstory with him is he had actually, slept with his father's concubines or wives. This was a different dispensation where that was tolerated. Not okay, but tolerated. But in this dispensation, they had multiple wives. And Reuben, the oldest son, and also remember, the oldest sons should get a double portion, but he lost his because he violated, by the commandments of his parents by sleeping with his father's wife, basically. So this could be him just trying to get back into good graces because he had already messed up. So his goal was to, say, "Oh, yes, put him in this pit," and then he was going to come back and rescue him. Verse 23, "And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread. And they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead, with their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt." So now the Ishmaelites, remember, that was the seed, it was Isaac's brother that God didn't recognize of Abraham. He had Ishmael with Hagar. So that was this people. Verse 26, "And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him. For he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. Then there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt." Now you're going to see a lot of types and shadows between Joseph, his brethren, and Jesus. Remember, Jesus was sold for 30 pieces, and Joseph is being sold for 20 pieces, being betrayed. Now, Jesus was betrayed by Judas, and he was sold, Joseph was sold by Judah, which both mean praise. It's the same, just a different transliteration. But you see the type: Judah sells for 20 pieces of silver Joseph, and Jesus is sold for 30 pieces by Judas. "And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brethren and said, The child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat, an evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and captain of the guard. Genesis 39, verse 1. So he's sold to the Ishmaelites. And then basically Reuben, he's the oldest son, so he knows it's not going to be good for him. So they dipped his coat of many colors into blood. And then they told their dad that a beast took him. And, now Jacob's like totally devastated. He's mourning, won't be comforted. So then we, pan back over to Joseph and the Ishmaelites that had him, sold him to Pharaoh, to be his slave. That's where we're at in Genesis 39, verse 1. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. Verse 2. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house, and all that he had, he put into his hand. So this is something that's a powerful reminder that it's not about being always in the right place at the right time, but rather being the right person, even if you find yourself in the most adverse situation. It's not being in the right place to be sold to Ishmaelites and into Potiphar, but God had a plan. And because he was becoming the right person, God's less concerned about where we're going, and he's more concerned about who we become in the process. So yes, have a vision. Yes, know where God's calling you to go, but also recognize and understand that he's more concerned with who you become in the process. Before you have to do some things, but before you can effectively do things, you have to become the right person. And so Joseph became prosperous, and the Lord was with him, and God blessed him, and he found grace. Again, just like Noah found grace, Joseph, we see here, finds grace in his sight, and he serves. And so because of this, he was made overseer over all of his house, and everything that he put his hand to, God blessed. Verse 5 of Genesis 39. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. See, God will bless us, when we're even at a secular job. And so it's important for us to have a right attitude and character regardless, so that people can see, wow, that's God operating in and through them. Because it says that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake, and the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not what, aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. He didn't even know everything that he had. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, lie with me. So now she's trying to tempt him with lust. But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? We're noticing a theme that there's a lot of sexual immorality, things that might have even been tolerated, like go all the way back to Hagar. It was never God's intention for one man to have more than one wife. But it created strife when Abram had Ishmael through Hagar. And it was through that strife that the Ishmaelites came and bought Joseph. And so now here we see another temptation for Joseph on his base nature through the tempting of lust. And so, but he says, no, I can't, I don't want to do this against my master, but even more importantly, how can I sin against my God? That's integrity. So again, it's not about being in the right place at the right time, but being the right person, the person that Joseph is becoming. Verse 10, and it came to pass as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house. Now, she's probably feeling away because it's probably in the first time that she's tried to entice a man through lust, but it's probably one of the first times that someone's turned her down. But it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, Lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand and fled and got him out. Now notice he's been changing garments a lot. So he went from having the coat of many colors, and he sold to Ishmaelites, and now this garment leaves, and it's a sign you'll start seeing of a different phase in his life. He's getting ready to transition into a different phase. And it came to pass when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and was fled forth. Verse 14, that she called unto the men of her house and spake unto them, saying, See, he hath brought in an Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in unto me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words, saying, The Hebrew servant which thou hast brought unto us hath come in unto me to mock me. And so now she's lying and saying that Joseph was trying to rape her and take advantage of her. Verse 18, and it came to pass as I lifted up my voice and cried that he left his garment with me and fled out. So it's basically saying it was the opposite, and that he was trying to come after her and she was trying to flee, and his garment got left behind. And now she's saying, oh, he left because I started screaming. And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. So again, everywhere he finds himself, God is with him because he's doing what's right. God still has a plan. Verse 22, and the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So everyone knows that this young man is blessed, and that God is blessing him and prospering him. So it's a beautiful thing. Genesis 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that, so real quick, I didn't put all these verses in here for the sake of time. So as we kind of wrap up with like what's going on, we're like on the back half of this Bible study, right? So here we have Joseph in there, and there was a baker and a butler, and they both had dreams. Remember, this is a dreamer. And man, they were bothered by it. And Joseph said, well, tell me the dreams. And so one of them said, man, I had a dream, and I was lifted up after a few days, he basically interprets the dreams, and you can go back and read through Genesis chapter 39 and 40, but essentially he interprets it and says, oh yeah, your dream, easy, in a few days you're going to be lifted up, but God's going to restore you back to your rightful place. And so then the other guy, the baker, whatever, he says, hey, I had a dream too, and he begins to share his dream, and he interprets it, and he says, yeah, you're going to be lifted up too in a few days, but you're going to be lifted up, and it's going to be off with your head. You're going to be killed. He's going to kill you. And sure enough, after the time that Joseph had prophesied, it came to pass. One was restored and one was killed. And so it had been a couple years, right? And so that's kind of where we're at. After a couple, and before they left, he said, hey, remember me. These were people that were put in prison. And he said, when you leave, don't forget about me. I need to get out of here. This isn't my final destination. And so Genesis 41, verse 1, and it came to pass at the end of the 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 well-favored kine and fat-fleshed, and they fed in a meadow. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean-fleshed. Now kine are cows, right? It's like cattle. And they stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean, bony, nasty-looking fleshed kine did eat up the 7 well-favored, fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled. And he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them his dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spake the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I do remember my faults this day. Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in ward in the captain of the guard's house, both me and the chief baker. And so, again, just for the sake of time, I'm just going to summarize. And again, I always encourage people to go back and read through it just to see what happened. But basically, and Pharaoh dreamed a couple dreams. One was a bunch of cows were feeding by the meadow and by the water, and they were, well-favored, fat cows, good-looking cattle. And then 7 ill-favored, nasty, bony kind came, looking terrible, and they devoured the well-favored kind. And then he had another dream that, if you'll read through, and it was about these stalks, they basically, these corn stalks basically, and then there was well-favored corn stalks, 7 of them, and then 7 nasty looking kind, and they also overtook the good kind. And he couldn't understand these dreams. And finally they said there was a young man in prison that told us about these dreams, and it came to pass. He can interpret these dreams for you. So they call for Joseph and they say, hey, this Hebrew, we heard that you can interpret dreams. So he tells him his dream, and Joseph's basically like, oh, that's easy. The 7 well-favored cattle and the 7 well-favored corn stalks represent 7 years of plenteous. We're going to be blessed here in Egypt. There's going to be an abundance that comes, 7 years of just plenteous and abundance. The 7 ill-favored cow and stalks represented 7 years of famine. But these 7 years of famine are going to be so terrible that it's going to be as if we didn't even have any 7 years of plenteous and abundance. And that's what it means by them devouring the well-favored cow and the well-favored corn. And so he's basically 7 years of good times, 7 years of bad times, and the 7 years of bad times are going to be so terrible that you're not even going to remember that there was any good times. But not only did he tell him what the dreams meant and interpret it, but now we skip over to verse 34, and he's going to tell him what to do. So he has this wisdom, and he says, let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land and take up the 5th part, so 20% of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. So there's just a good financial, wisdom right there. Don't live on everything. Live below your means, right? Live below your means. You give your tithe and then take a percentage and pay yourself first before you do anything else. Save, once you get out of debt and save. So he says, take 20% and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. And the food shall be for store to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. So he's basically like, take 20% during those 7 years of good times and just store it away. So when the famine comes, we don't die. And he thought that was brilliant. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? So even the secular world recognized that the Spirit of God was with Joseph. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thou shalt be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And so just recognize again, he's changing garments again, which represented a transition period. So now he went from being sold to the Ishmaelites, thrown in a pit, right? Then sold to the Ishmaelites, then sold to Potiphar's house, then thrown in prison. So now finally he's being elevated, and he made him ride in the 2nd chariot which he had, right? And they cried before him, bow the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. Puts him in the Ferrari, the Bentley, right? That was a chariot. Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without thee shall no man lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. Matthew 6. So something interesting about Joseph is that, during this process of becoming, there's something important that we find out. And this is really what we want to get to. So we're wrapping up this Bible study, but it's about forgiveness. He could have done anything he wanted. He could have remembered Potiphar's wife and said, man, I'm second in command now. I'm about to show them who the boss is now. I'm about to peel back her nails, put some bleach and lemon on there, cut little slits, and he could have done anything he wanted. I'm not trying to be grotesque, but he found a place of forgiveness. He found a place of forgiveness. So Matthew chapter 6, verse 14. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if ye forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So forgiveness is extremely important for us to find. And it's not about them, it's about us. It's about us. When we are bitter and envy and we don't forgive, we cut off the power we have to God. It's just like we dam it up, right? It's like water flowing and it can't get to us, right? His spirit and power can't flow in and through us when we are, not forgiving. But when we forgive, it puts the power back on. And so God is able to operate in and through us, right? Again, Matthew chapter 18, verse 21. Then came Peter to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. Therefore is the kingdom of heaven likened unto a certain king, which would take account of his servants. And when he had begun to reckon, one was brought unto him, which owed him 10,000 talents. So this is like several millions of dollars, okay? But for as much as he had not to pay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, and his wife and children and all that he had, and payment to be made. The servant therefore fell down and worshipped him, saying, Lord, have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. Then the Lord of that servant was moved with compassion, and loosed him, and forgave him the debt. But the same servant, verse 28, went out and found one of his fellow servants, which owed him 100 pence, so a few bucks. And he laid hands on him and took him by the throat, saying, Pay me that thou owest. And his fellow servant fell down at his feet and besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into the prison, till he should pay the debt. So when his fellow servants saw what was done, they were very sorry, and came and told unto their Lord all that was done. Then his Lord, after that he had called him, said unto him, O thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all that debt, because thou desirest me. Shouldest thou not also have had compassion on thy fellow servant, even as I had pity on thee? And his Lord was wroth, and delivered him to the tormentors, till he should pay all that was due unto him. So likewise shall my heavenly Father do also unto you, if ye from your hearts forgive not everyone his brother their trespasses. I feel like we've heard, a lot of people, Christians have heard this, but it's oftentimes overlooked, that our forgiveness is predicated on our ability to forgive others, and probably also to forgive ourselves. So we have to forgive those people. We have to let people go. Again, it's not about them. But one of my mentors told me, he said, when you choose not to forgive somebody and to hold a grudge and to be, and be vengeful, it's like drinking the poison, hoping that it kills them. It's not doing anything to them. When you drink the poison, it's slowly killing you, and it's cutting you off from the power of God. And more importantly, you can't be in the favor of God and in the good graces of God if you choose not to forgive others. So it's so vitally important that as believers, that we learn to forgive. And this is something that Joseph had to do. Remember, it wasn't about where he was going, the destination, but who he was becoming. And he was becoming a man that could forgive. Again, that's a type of Christ, right? Christ died to forgive. He says, Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. We grow up, we're trained and conditioned and programmed from an early age. So the only way to free and liberate others from their transgression and living in darkness is for us to be the light. Martin Luther King Jr. said, darkness can't cast out darkness. Only the light can do that. And so hatred cannot cast out hatred. Only love can do that. So we liberate others, give them an opportunity to be liberated by being the light, learning to forgive and loving those, right? Bless them that curse thee. Pray for them that hate thee and despitefully use thee. It's easier said than done, but it is the way. It's the right way. It's the way of Christ. His way is hard, it's challenging, it's narrow, it's straight, but it is, without a doubt, the right way. So as we finish up, this is the last few verses, Genesis 50, his brethren basically came, back from the land. So basically the brethren were getting real hungry. And again, you can read through this. And so they come to Egypt because they heard there was some food there. And they recognized that it was Joseph, and they said, oh my gosh. So verse 18, and his brethren also went and fell down before his face. And they said, behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, fear not, for I am in the place of God. For am I in the place of God? But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. And so, there's a huge story that happened. Basically, the brethren came, got some food. Joseph recognized them, but they did not recognize him. Okay? And so he gave them some food, and then he hid a cup in their stuff. He basically made it seem like they stole when they didn't, so that one of the brethren could stay there. They were very repentful and sorrowful. And the father finally comes down, and once he finally reveals himself to them, they all make obeisance, just like his dream. And guess how old he is? I didn't put the scripture in here, but he's 30 years old. Now remember, he was 17 years old when he began to have these dreams. And remember how it's like in the dreams, the 7 cows represented 7 years. Well, if you had 11 stars plus 1 sun plus 1 moon, that's 13. So if that represented 13 years, it was 30 years when he was 30 years old when all of this came to pass. So, but again, I think one of the most powerful verses that's used is, but as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass it as is this day, to save much people alive. This is where Romans comes in, where it says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Things are supposed to work for our good if you are a believer and a child of God, right? In Psalms 23, and surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. In James, it says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of lights. It says that God withholds no good thing from them that walk upright and in the way of righteousness. So when we do what's right, good things are supposed to happen to us. Good things are supposed to happen to you and to I when we are in Christ Jesus, when we are believers, when we forgive, when we let go. No matter what happens, no matter the adversity, your adversity is your advantage. It's simply pushing you in the right direction. So that is the lesson. The crux of the matter is to forgive. Greet each day with forgiveness. Greet today with forgiveness in your heart, and we'll see you in the next lesson.